Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas with me, Bill, the company's expert. Hope you're all doing fine out there. This is the podcast or live stream, whatever you want to call it, where we talk about entrepreneurship and that wonderful, easy way into entrepreneurship, side hustles. And we talk about, obviously, side hustle ideas, but a lot more than the ideas, how to actually go about doing it. And the topic of today's episode is managing money in a business. So we're going to talk a little bit about money for a change, something I don't usually talk about, even though I've got a master's degree in finance. It's because really the money kind of takes care of itself if you do the other elements of the business properly. If you focus on marketing, you focus on operations, and you do those things right, a lot of times the money takes care of itself with minimal kind of management. But obviously, there's a little bit more to it. So we're going to get into that today. Before we get started, just a reminder that I have 2 courses, and my views on my channel were actually down the last couple of weeks. But a lot of people bought my Get Hired course, so thank you to the people that did that. Hopefully, you're getting a lot of value out of that, and also, I want to thank the people that are supporting me on Patreon and the people that are supporting me by joining my channel here. I got a couple of new channel members recently, so thank you to those people. You guys are awesome. Okay, we are here to learn. Let's talk about the financial side of starting a business and startups in general. And to start this, I have to go back to what I've seen. I used to mentor startup founders several years ago, just on the side. Just kind of as a fun thing, because there's a lot of highly talented and very sharp young people out there that are wanting to start businesses, and I totally applaud them for doing it. I mean, it's a great thing to aspire to do, and in fact, I encourage most people to step into the world of business and try your hand at a side hustle, even if you've got a corporate career and that's where you want to be. It's fine, because you will learn so much from even just attempting to do a side hustle, let alone being able to get one off the ground successfully. You will learn so much directly about it, about business and what's important to business. It'll also benefit you indirectly in your corporate career. You will have a deep and fundamental understanding of what is actually important to businesses, what they care about, and what they don't care about so much. This really informs you of how to behave in your company if you've got a corporate career. What are the things that people high up running the company care about, and what they kind of care less about? It's a really eye-opening experience, and most people never get it. And as a result, they don't really understand business. They think they do. If you work as an administrator, or you work in operations, or even if you work in a sales position of some kind or customer service, you may think you understand business by virtue of having seen a little piece of it. But I assure you, you don't. You don't until you have the full experience of running a business. And the microcosm version of that is this: side hustles and startups. So let's get into it. Okay, the biggest problem in a business is how to make money. This is the biggest problem that you're going to have to overcome if you are in charge of a business or you're running a business. Okay, a lot of people don't understand it. If you have inherited a business, you usually don't fundamentally understand this problem because you haven't solved it yourself. You've been handed the solution. You don't know, what variations of this solution will still work or will stop working because you haven't tried it. And the biggest problem that anybody has when they're starting a business or a side hustle is how to make money. And what I've seen in my experience, I've seen a lot of startup founders and small business or would-be small business owners run away from this problem. They don't want to face it. They don't want to try and solve it. Okay, for example, and a lot of would-be entrepreneurs or startup founders, they apply for funding, or they go the route where they look for financing of some kind, whether that's angel investors or some other exotic route, or they just simply go out and get a loan, right? Which is what most people end up doing. They get some kind of loan Usually these are wrapped up in the guise of it being like a government program or something like that, to stimulate the economy. But at the end of the day, it's a loan. And a lot of times, like I've spoken about repeatedly, I feel this is really pushing the limits of ethics, what some financial services entities are doing, where they offer loans to people to start up businesses. Really, they make you sign a personal guarantee. So even if you've incorporated your business, you're still on the hook for that money. So if you start your business and it fails, you still have to pay back the money. What I've seen as a common thing is they require a personal guarantee for 75% of it. So that means that even if you incorporate yourself and you take out this loan, you still have to pay back 75% of it, even if you don't make a cent. So it's I've talked about it before, it's a little bit underhanded, but I've seen a lot of people run away from the problem. They don't want to face the problem of how to make money. They would rather apply for funding or get financing. And just in the back of their minds, they think like, okay, once I've created my product or created my service or whatever it is, the money will take care of itself. Then, we'll start selling it and then the money will roll right in. Right? Or for some tech startups, they have another version of that. They say, okay, well, I'm going to create this thing. And then someday in the future, when it's all done, someone will just acquire my company and buy me out. So I don't really have to worry about how to be profitable. I just have to create this thing and then someone will buy me. And then that'll be that. Hello to Limaz. Limaz is here. Hello to Test Account. That's an awesome name, by the way. You've got to say hello world. That would be more appropriate for a test account. So a lot of people shy away from this problem. In the back of their minds, they're thinking, I think they're fantasizing about having an office, having employees, being able to have a title to your name, having a business card that says CEO or something like that, and feeling important. And being able to introduce yourself as that title and have people sort of respect you for it. And that's what they're thinking, but they're not thinking of, okay, how do I actually make money? Because that's the less glamorous part. And in my experience, you can always tell people, you can spot the people that have confronted this problem as opposed to the people who haven't, because the ones that have confronted this problem and actually thought about it, they're the ones that are frugal. They're the ones that are thrifty. They're the ones that are not throwing money around. When you see startup founders and would-be small business owners that are just throwing money around in the beginning, they're getting offices, like fancy offices with, I don't know if it's granite countertops or that's just in your kitchen, but the really fancy, almost looks like when you walk into the building, it almost looks like a lawyer's office. Okay, when you're a startup and you haven't made any money yet, not only are you not profitable, you're not revenue positive, you're not making money yet. It's dumb. I'm going to see if my button works here. Yes. Dumb. So don't do that. Hopefully everybody understands the basics of accounting, basically. Okay, you make money in a business, that's called your revenue. That's the money coming in, the money that goes into, for want of a better word, the cash register, the proverbial cash register. The amount of money that your customers pay you, that's revenue. Some of that money is not yours. You have to then take it and pay your bills, right? Okay, your costs, your expenses. And the money that's left over in the end is your profit. Okay, so the fact that you've got money coming in the door, that's good. That means you're revenue positive. You are making sales of some kind, which is a real milestone for starting your own business. However, that's not the end goal. The end goal is to be profitable, right? Profitable is more than just making revenue. Okay, so it's like a dual goal. Number one, you have to get revenue positive. And then number two, you have to get profitable. Okay, so it's like a two-step challenge. Okay, a lot of people don't make the first step. They never get to the point where they start making sales. Okay, this is quite common in the startup world where especially if the company is run by more technical type people. In my experience, you get companies coming, you get startup founders that come from sort of two worlds. One are the technical people, engineer types, developers, tradespeople, that kind of thing. The other group are like the salespeople, right? They come from the world of sales. They're more extrovert and they know a lot of people and they're, very slick talkers and all this kind of stuff. They have the opposite problem. They usually can make sales, it's just they have nothing to sell. That's usually what their problem is. But yeah, so most people I suspect that are here are probably belong to the first group, more technical type people, a lot of introverted type people. And in their head, what they're constantly thinking about are technical issues, technical problems. How can I create this thing? How is it going to work? Technical problems, as opposed to business problems. And for those people, there's something that a lot of them don't understand, and that is that there is a difference between a research project and a business. Okay? If you're trying to solve a technical problem, okay, and that's kind of your focus, that's basically a research project. Okay? You can, somebody funds you and you use that money to, first of all, give you the time to work on this thing, to sort of replace your income and, put food on the table and all this kind of stuff. It has to be funded and then pay for any expenses you might have. And then you solve this technical problem. Okay. That's a research project. That's not a business. A lot of technical type founders, they confuse a research project with a business. A business is different. A business, the whole point is money. Okay, once you're thinking money coming in, money going out, that's a business. Okay, a business, the whole point of it is to have more money coming in than what's going out. Okay, that's your goal. That's your challenge. You don't have to be solving a really big technical problem. You could do something super simple. Okay, I don't know. You could drive people around, do like a sort of taxi or Uber type thing. That's not very technically challenging. You jump in a car, you say to somebody, "Hey, you need a ride?" Okay, get in, right? I mean, how hard is that? There's no technical challenge there, but it's a business problem. How do you do that and be profitable, have more money coming in than what's going out to pay for gas and pay for vehicle maintenance and pay for income replacement or whatever other expenses you have, right? That's a business problem. So I've seen a lot of technical type founders that confuse a research project with a business. They think, okay, I'm going to go into business. And really what I'm going to do is a research project. I'm going to solve this technical problem. I'm going to create this app, or I'm going to, find this innovative way of using AI to solve this particular problem as applied to a video game or something, right? That's a technical problem. There's no thought given to who are my customers, who's going to pay for this, how much are they willing to pay for it, what are my costs going to be? None of that has entered their mind. What they're thinking about is a technical problem. I'm going to occasionally go to the chat here and see what people are saying here. So, Lima says, "Hey Bill, do you recommend any websites for freelancers? I looked at Upwork and I'm assaulted with microtransactions to even send my proposal." I don't know much about Upwork. I don't know much about those websites. I'm an advocate for just going direct to people, right? Or using just social networking, to sort of publicize what you're doing. If there's equivalent of groups or places where people congregate that would be your potential customers, that's what I would look for. I don't know a lot about Upwork specifically, so I can't recommend it or dissuade you either way. You continue here. That's not even the end. I also have to bid with others to increase chance that it will be seen by the employer. Yeah, this is the problem. When you try and put everyone at the same level and level the playing field, it can be a good thing, in the sense that, like, okay, you're getting in front of supposed potential customers. So I suppose from that perspective, it might be a good thing. But the problem with putting everyone on this level playing field is that you negate some of the advantages of being in the real world. In the real world, there isn't a level playing field. You make your own rules. Okay, so if you're super proactive and you go out and you contact people and you give demonstrations and you create some really good promotional materials and you do content marketing and create some free content to do with your stuff, and you go and you show up at events and you do all this promotion, usually you get rewarded for that if you're doing it right, if you're going to the right audience with the right message. And, maybe you've done some market research and you kind of have an idea of the type of people out there that might want your thing and how much they're prepared to pay for it, as opposed to the person that hasn't done any of those things, right? Okay. So the problem is when they try and put everyone together on the same platform and they give you all these constraints, they have to pigeon you into this little box so they can compare apples to apples to apples. The problem is it negates a lot of those advantages, right? So that's what I would say. I mean, I don't know Upwork, so I can't really talk about it, but hopefully that makes sense. There's a whole bunch of icons and crap in the way. I can't really read this. Jamie Torres says, I have my own small landscaping business. Okay, good. That's kind of like a sort of the microcosm of a business on the small end. Yeah, so anyway, what I've been talking about so far was the difference between essentially a research project and a business, okay? Now, if you're in business, you've got to solve the problem. First of all, you have to figure out how to make money. You have to make sales, okay? You can't just not address that problem. That's the fundamental problem you have to address. And then once you've hit that milestone where you've made some sales, okay, you've proven that yes, this is a thing, people will pay for it, okay? I do have at least a somewhat effective method of selling it and marketing message to communicate to a potential audience, okay? There's some indications that a market exists for this thing I'm selling, this offering, whether it's a product or a service, okay? So that's good, you've crossed that milestone. Now the second problem is you have to bring in more money than you have going out, right? You have to be profitable. So how do we do that? Well, there's two things at play there, like everyone knows. You've got your profit side and you've got your cost side. So how will we become profitable? It's usually a combination of trying to increase your sales. And that means not sales numbers, but sales revenue, okay? Like the amount of money that sales brings in. It's not necessarily about making a higher number of sales. It's about increasing the amount of revenue that your sales brings in, your sales revenue, and making sure your costs are minimized, right? That's the other component. Now, you don't have to take both to their extreme, but you have to find some formula that, you've got something going on the revenue side, you got something going on the cost side, and in the end, your revenue is more than your cost. It's very simple. It's very simple in theory. Okay? But how do we do this? Well, the first thing that you can conclude here is that if you're not paying any attention whatsoever to your costs, it's pretty hard to be profitable. I mean, unless you've done the equivalent of hitting a hole in one, you've just found this thing that's just like a money printing machine. And then even if you're not really efficient, you're not really paying attention to your costs, you're still making money. That's great when it happens. Usually that's a very rare thing, okay? Usually we don't see that, okay? I mean, it is possible, yes. And there are some highly publicized wild exceptions where people have been tremendously successful. If you've sort of read up on some famous success stories, the Microsoft story, the Apple story, the Facebook story, the Intel story, all kinds of, Standard Oil before it, all kinds of success stories. Those are wild exceptions. That's usually not what we see. In 99.99% of the cases, it doesn't work out like that. Okay. If you want to position yourself to have a reasonably good chance of succeeding in a moderate way, don't pay too much attention to those extremely rare success stories that are, where people just essentially stumbled on a license to print money. So usually it's a matter of paying attention to both of those things. You look at the revenue side, what can we do with their sales? And then you look at the cost side, okay? And you're looking at the cost side with the revenue side in mind. Considering how much money I'm bringing in, what should I be doing on the cost side? Jamie Torres says, how can I... You see, I'm using Streamlabs OBS, and they've come out with apparently a new feature that puts these icons right over top of your comment feed, your chat feed. So the latest comment is obscured by this icon. How can I, what? Do sales for landscaping. I thought you said you have your own small landscaping business. So you're just starting it, you mean? Like that's the idea? Well, I mean, look, okay, I'm not in the landscaping business myself, okay? But here's, maybe if somebody put a gun to my head and said, like, look, you've got to figure out how to make this business work. This is probably what I would do, some variant of this, okay? The first problem you need to solve is, who are your potential customers? Who are people that are prepared to pay good money for landscaping? That's the first thing you have to figure out. Who are these people? Where are they? Okay, these are presumably homeowners. Maybe they could be businesses too. You could have commercial clients. You could have residential clients. Okay, they're presumably people with lawns, right? So the next kind of constraint would probably be your geographic location. So if you're located in a certain part of a city or something, are there people with lawns in your area? If not, you have to go outside your area. You have to figure out the geographic location, like region that you're going to be operating in, okay? And then look at, and then a starting point, doesn't mean you have to do this, but a starting point is look at existing landscape businesses, okay? How do they promote themselves? How do they connect with their audience? Like, for example, let's go here, okay? Now, I am in the city of Winnipeg, so I'm just going to do Winnipeg. I have no idea where you are, but I mean, you can do this from any city. And I mean, I've showed this off many times before. So here, I'm looking at a big map of my city, and I know this is slowing down my feed, okay? But, okay, so let's see here. I don't know, landscaping. Okay, I'm doing a search for landscaping. So here's some stuff that pops up. Okay, let's pretend that I'm in this part of the city, okay? Let's pretend I'm right here, okay? So I can say search this area. This is going to find landscaping businesses. So here we've got Creative Edge Curbing. Oh, it's a concrete contractor. What's this? Pyramid Rock Gardening and something or other. This is slowing my computer right down. Stubbs Landscaping. Now, let's pick on something here. Superior Sod and Soil. How about this thing way out here? RJ Fathers Landscaping. So if I click that, it's going to give you the details on it. You can go to their website and all this kind of stuff. Now, what you can maybe do is see if these people have websites. Like, for example, this one here, RJ Fathers Landscaping. They've got a website right here. Okay, this is taking a nice long time to come up. But you can go see what they're doing. See if they have a presence on social media. See where they're operating. See what types of services they're offering. Okay, so this is a starting point. Try and find out what other people in the same space as you are doing. Okay, now just as a sort of gut feeling here, I think a lot of these people advertise by mail. They physically go to a homeowner's mailbox and throw in a flyer, or they go door to door and saying, would you like this? We offer this. That would help. They probably have a presence on social media. If there are any Facebook groups or something for people in this region, this part of the city, maybe you can sort of say, hello, I'm here, I offer this, in some way. Okay, but that would be the starting point. Try and find out where, like how these people promote themselves. Then, what would be perfect would be to get inside of it. Okay, so if you could somehow connect with people that either work at these places or have worked at these places, and pick their brain about it. If you're hiring employees at the beginning, it would be really useful to have employees that worked for previous landscape companies. I don't know if you're going down that route. But basically, you're looking to discover what these people know. So that would be a sort of starting point for me. And it's simply a matter of figuring out who are the potential customers for that thing, that service. I don't know if they also sell products too. They might sell fertilizer and I don't know, other things too. But, and then after you figure out what they're kind of doing, go out and do some market research, talk to some of the potential clients, go door to door if it's residential, and ask, if someone will talk to you, just say, can I ask you a couple of questions about, your lawn maintenance? Do you use an existing landscaping company, or you're like, I don't know, something like that. Or, landscape is in the construction industry, so you can go to a construction industry event. You can use the same method I showed you a moment ago, like this business, to discover what construction industry events there are. If there's a trade show or an association, you go down there, all your competitors will be there, all their customers will be there, their commercial customers, all the suppliers that sell equipment to landscaping companies, they sell supplies to landscaping companies, they'll be there. So it's like a big sort of trade show. You go down there and you start talking to people, you start learning, you get a feel for what's going on there and how they do business. That would be a starting point. I could go on, but hopefully that gives you some basic idea. Butween says, what career is good for learning how to build and manage side hustle companies? What career? Well, if you're trying to build businesses, you would learn business. That's what the study of business is about. It's basically going to teach you how to run a business. That means it teaches you how to be a general manager. General manager is someone who handles the profit side. Okay, so that the revenue side, that's like sales and marketing. And also you know how to handle the cost side. So that's things like operations, and then all the services, things like HR and IT and all that kind of stuff, accounting, right? So if you want to know what to learn in school that will teach you how to build a business and run it, you would learn the study of business. In university, you have different faculties for different areas of study, like science and arts and medicine and architecture and engineering. It would be the faculty of business, right? And they would teach you essentially how to run a business. I've talked extensively about that. If you do that, if you do it in a formal way, you come out with a bachelor degree of business, okay, usually with a specialization in some particular area like marketing or accounting. And that teaches you essentially how to, this sounds bad, but how to be a grunt, okay? You're the person in the company preparing reports for a decision maker. You're the one going and doing the market research. You're the one that's going and, doing the basic, preparing the financial statements. Okay, you're the one that's going and doing, predictions of if we were to do option A, option B, option C for how we spend our money, where would we be in 5 years? You're the one doing that. And then you give the report to a decision maker. Okay, the decision maker, in theory, is someone with a master's degree, a master's of business. That's an MBA. Someone with a master's degree in business, in theory, it teaches you how to make the decisions. What should we do? Should we do this or should we do that? Should we spend money on making our operation more efficient by implementing lean principles or Six Sigma? Or should we invest that money instead into hiring 20 more salespeople and opening up distribution channels in this other region, something like that? Which one would be more profitable at the end of, say, 2 years, right? And what's the risk associated with it? That's what someone with a master's degree in business would be able to do. They'd be able to make those decisions, in theory. Okay? So if you want to know what to study, you would study business. Now, okay, yes, I'm going to plug my course. Everyone knows, everyone can see, it's right on the screen. I have a course called the $100 MBA where I've created it specifically for people who want to be entrepreneurs or want to learn what business is about, but without paying like 5 figures and going back to university for a couple years. What it basically does is you get the textbooks that you would be studying in university. Okay. I give you a reading list with links to these books. You can buy them cheap on Amazon for like $5 per book. And, instead of having someone read the book to you and give you assignments, at the end of every chapter, you read the book on your own. It's a self-study thing. Okay. That's why it's so cheap, but yet you're still getting the same material that you would learn in university. Okay. And I didn't write the books. These are books that are written by masters in their fields. If you take Harvard business, like a business degree from Harvard, you're using some of these same books. So, is it accredited? No, of course not. It isn't. But there's no evaluations. There's no assignments. I mean, you can do that stuff if you want, but you don't have to prove to me that you know it. This is entirely for you. But because there's no evaluations, I have no way of knowing what you've gotten, if anything, from it. So it's not accredited. It's never going to be accredited under those conditions. But it's for people that just want to learn the material. You just want to learn these ideas. If you have the ambition of being in business for yourself, this is the stuff you need to know. I did this because I noticed that there's a lot of like coffee table books that purport to teach you what you need to know, to start your own business, and they really don't. I've seen a lot of books, it's written by an accountant or something, and the accountant says, "Oh, here's what you need to know to start your own business." And then you're like, okay, they teach you basic accounting, but you need to know a lot more than that to start a business and lead it to success. You need to know how to sell something. Right? So there's a lot of what I perceive to be misinformation. People that make these big promises, and they'll teach you some stuff, but, So anyway, that's why I created that. So, it's an option if you want to go in that direction. If you do, there's a link in the description. You can check out more details about that course. Buteween says to Jamie, it's simple to use digital marketing during the busy landscaping season. Yes, it is. It's simple, but that can be a double-edged sword. It's simple, which means that anyone can do it, and it gets saturated. Sometimes some customers will have a greater rapport with the person that knocks on their door and has an actual conversation with them, as opposed to a sort of faceless entity on a social networking site. So the best thing is to try both and see which one has better results for you. Sometimes, a lot of marketing strategies are, they're a bit more complex. They have, like, the idea is that maybe somebody comes to your door, and that's the thing that really gets you interested and convinces you this is a real option that you should check out. But then the next thing the customer does is they do a search for you on the internet. They look at your website, or if they find you in, like a Facebook group or something like this, that serves to validate you. So they're convinced more by the personal interaction, the personal selling, but you have to have an online presence to serve as, not that generates leads, but it validates the leads that you've already generated through other channels. So, there's all this kind of stuff going on. So look at what other people are doing. Do some market research, meaning talk to potential customers. What do they care about? What would they want to pay for? What would they not want to pay for? What are they not interested in? Learn some of that stuff one way or another. And then whatever you discover through that, you then adapt your marketing strategy to serve that, right? That's usually how this stuff goes. Dustin Fortman says, what is your target revenue per employee when starting out? I've always heard of 3 times their hourly rate, plus also some conflicting numbers as well. Yeah, that is going to that's going to vary dramatically by industry. So there is no blanket answer. I mean, if you're serving fast food, okay, it's going to be very, very low. If you're providing industrial services, and you've got a few technicians or something, it's going to be extremely high. So that's going to vary. When you're just starting out, okay, if this is a real startup business, I would not be paying by the hour, okay? And that's going to require some getting used to from people in the beginning. Because the last thing I think, in my opinion, and in my opinion is based on my experience, the last thing you would want in a startup business is if you are the founder or owner and you've got, say, 5 employees or 3 employees or something like that, the last thing you would want is for those people to be punching a clock, working as if this is some larger company that has like 500 plus employees in it. That's the last thing you'd want. Okay. You need employees with a different mindset in the beginning. They have to be a little more entrepreneurial. They have to be able to go outside of their core job responsibilities to solve problems and figure out solutions for things that were never specified by you. They have to have that ability to do it. They can't just be punching a clock. I've seen a lot of startups fail simply because they subbed out, they subcontracted out a certain core component of their business, whether it was operations or sales or something. And essentially what you got is you've sort of farmed out a bunch of hourly employees working for you. And they're just simply working by the hour. I've seen people fail spectacularly in the software business. If you're trying to write an app and you sub out some of the development work to a company that's basically paying their people by the hour and they're passing that on to you, I've seen that be the kiss of death because their hours just spiral out of control. They always tell you, it'll take like 100 hours when really it takes 500 hours. And it just the costs keep growing and growing and growing. And at that point, they've got you by the cojones essentially because, you've already invested, say, the equivalent of 200 man hours into something and it still isn't done. Do you then cut your losses and start all over? In which case you've just spent almost all your money for nothing and you're out of cash. Or do you just keep going in the hope that you can get to the end? And maybe even if you do, it's cost 500 hours. It's taken 500 man hours to do, in which case you'll never recoup your cost now with your existing strategy. And there's no more money left in the tank to amp up your marketing strategy or your sales effort. So I've seen that. So you really need to bring on board in the beginning employees that are not punching a clock. They have to have a more entrepreneurial type mindset. You have to be able to give them a stake in the operation so that if the business makes more money, they get more money. Okay. Whether that's doing it all formally with shares or just having some other arrangement. But sorry, I know I'm giving a very long-winded roundabout circumlocution of your question there. And I'm not answering it because there is no real answer. You could go by that rule of thumb. You could say 3 times hourly rate and multiply that, What I do, the metric I use for this stuff is just annual, basically their annual salary equivalent. So for example, if you pay an employee like $70,000 a year, how much are they bringing in for the year? Be like 150, something like that. But it depends what business you're in. Okay. So, sorry, that's the best answer I can give. Now, if you had a specific industry in mind, then we could maybe get into more specifics of it. So, yeah. But anyway, coming back to the whole the whole money thing, what I basically said so far this stream was that there's a lot of people that start a business, especially a lot of technical people, especially introverted types, where they're really not doing a business, they're doing a research project. They're solving a technical problem, okay? And that's what their focus and all their focus and energy is devoted to. And they haven't really given a thought to how they're going to commercialize it, okay? And that's a kiss of death. Usually what ends up happening is they run out of cash. They never get either revenue positive, or even if they do, they never get profitable, okay? And you've got to solve this. So a lot of successful entrepreneurs, we notice a few traits about them. Usually they're very frugal. They're very efficient. They try and, not if there's a possible way to not spend money, they don't spend money. Instead of thinking, how can I pay for this thing? They think, how can I eliminate the need for paying for that thing? That's the mentality, okay? If I can do it myself, I'll do it myself. I'm not going to hire someone to do it for me unless there's absolutely no other way. I'm not going to sub it out. I'm not going to pay anyone to do it for me if I can do it myself. In the beginning, this is usually what gets us off the ground, okay? We tend to do it. It's also something that I think every startup founder or would-be small business owner should do, because this allows you to fully understand every aspect of your business, because you've done it all. You haven't just farmed everything out and you have no knowledge of how each of these areas is really done. You've done it yourself. This allows you to make informed decisions later on about other people taking over. Either you're hiring employees or you're doing other things, but you understand what needs to be done. You can make better decisions about what people would be best equipped to do that function for you, because you've done it yourself and you know what it takes. Okay? So being very frugal and very thrifty in the beginning, in my opinion, based on my experience, is the way to go. And then we get the eventual question. If you can solve these problems, you've gotten to the point where you're revenue positive, and then you've gotten to the point where you're profitable. Then we get the question of how much should you reinvest into the business? Okay. So if the business made a certain amount of money, let's say you made, $50,000 profit in a year. Okay. Like that's pretty good. That's good for like your first year. What should you do with that? Should you just put it directly into your pocket, or should you reinvest? Right? Now, you're going to do a proportion, right? You're going to presumably take some money out as profit and some you're going to reinvest. The question is how much? Okay, so how much should you do it? And that's entirely up to the owners and their situation. But, it can't be more than a portion of your profitability. That's the amount that you would reinvest. Now, contrast that with the amount of loans people get. Usually people like to take out these big loans to finance their business venture in the beginning. It's way bigger than the amount of money that you would get in a year, certainly your first year, to reinvest into your business. So once again, this shows the importance of being frugal. You could take that $50,000, you could blow it all on renovating your office, and I've seen people do this. They take a huge chunk of the, the financing they got to start their business, and they spend it on idiotic cosmetic things like that don't add any value. You're never going to make, that $50,000 back purely because of having you've got a spiffier office. It's never going to make its money back when you put it towards spending it on that, right? So one thing I will say is that what I look for and what I think is the way people should do things is to focus on efficiency. Okay, that should be your priority. What is the quickest, simplest, easiest way of making money? Focus on that, right? That should govern your decisions in the beginning. Get to the point where you're profitable. Start making sales. Can you make sales before you've delivered something? Think about it. When you go to the store, usually that's how it works. You want to buy something at the store, you pay first, and then they let you walk out of the store with it, right? If you're buying a product or something, right? So, is that the way a lot of businesses operate? No. Like if you're in business to business, usually it works the opposite way. You provide the service or whatever, and then you send an invoice, and the company gets around to paying that 30, 60, 90, or 120 days after they receive the invoice, right? So you provide your thing up front, and then you wait until the money comes, right? Now, yeah, that's how some businesses operate. That's how a lot of businesses operate, because you have to operate like that for some valid reasons. However, when you're starting a startup, do you have to operate like that? No, not necessarily. Can you make pre-sales? Can you sell your product first and then provide the product? Okay, if you're in the landscaping business, can you get people to sign up for a contract? Here, sign the contract. This means, you're going to pay for like a 6-month service, and you're going to pay 1 month up front. And in return, we will do your landscaping for 6 months, whatever, or we'll, lawn care, whatever it is. Can you do it like that? Yes, you can. That would be easier. You get money up front. Number one, you prove that it can be, you can get customers before you've had to spend any money on providing a service, which is good, right? Secondly, you've got cash in hand to finance your operation, essentially working capital, to make, get the ball in motion and start providing the service. Okay, so efficiency, think about that. Think about slimming things down, doing it as cheaply as possible, or putting it this way, avoid unnecessary expense. That's what I mean. I don't mean doing it cheaply in terms of skimping on quality. I mean avoiding unnecessary expensive things that aren't necessary to pay for right now. You avoid those. Okay? That's what I recommend. Dumpling Abroad is here. Dumpling Abroad says, "Hey Bill, for someone who hasn't got many connections or any at all in the field I'd like to be in, e.g. photography and video making, what's the best way to connect with others in that area?" It's funny because I'm connected to like 4 people or something on Twitter. I don't really have a big presence on Twitter. I don't really care too much about Twitter. But like 3 of the 4 people or something are like photographers. The great thing about photography, so far as I can see, is that obviously it's very visual. So in a social networking post, things that are very visual have an advantage because you can just post a little picture, and that's like eye candy, and it draws people's focus. Excuse me. I just noticed my cup is the same color as the Side Hustle Ideas thumbnail and branding, if you want to call it that. So, I don't know, do a search for photography in your city, and then send out connection requests to people. Do a search for photography on Facebook. I mean, we could even try this thing here if you've got like a second. Google Maps. We're looking at the city that you're in, right? And we zoomed in presumably to, let's pretend that you live in a certain region. Like here, they seem to have a lot of photographers downtown in my city, but let's say we're out all the way over here. Let's pretend that we lived here, okay? And you say, search this area. And there's like a couple here, AML photography. It's like a photography studio. You could go there and talk to somebody. You could get on LinkedIn and type in, if this was your area, type in AML photography, and then see the individuals that are in AML photography. You may have to get a paid version of LinkedIn, or you could use I believe they still have try the premium LinkedIn for 1 month for free, in which case you get unlimited search. So you can search for anything and all the results will fully show up. And see the individuals in that company and other companies, and start sending out connection requests. Usually put a little note, and just say, I think, your photography is like really amazing. I'd very much like to connect and learn more about what you do, or something like that. I mean, none of that is dishonest. So, and then some people will connect with you, some people won't, but you'll have some connections in that industry. Alternatively, you could look for trade shows. That would be a really good thing to do. Look for photography trade shows or photography events. I'm sure there's some kind of event where a lot of photographers go to talk about photography. All the camera companies are there. All the, the big clients for commercial photography, if there are such a thing, they would be there too. People trying to sell photographers the very latest cameras. So Sony and Canon and all them will be there. So go to that event and you can like rub shoulders with all the photographers, right? And you can see how they operate. You can see who they are. You can ask questions and you learn. You start the learning process of how this is done professionally, right? In one of the informational interviews I did recently, or somewhere I picked this up, someone was talking about how farmers are a big group of customers for people that provide photography service. They go and they do drone photography of all the crops and all this kind of stuff. It's not super artistic, but they pay a lot of money for that because it's very valuable. And things like this. So you go to the industry events and they will give you ideas of like, things like this. And you say like, oh, I never thought of that. Right. And then there you go. There's a couple of farmers at the event and you talk to them. Right. Like what do you use photography for? Have you had good experiences? What are the types of things that you look for? What do you consider worth paying for? What are some of the things that they try and sell you that you're just not interested in? You ask them these kind of questions, and you start the learning process. And the more you learn, this is the gradual tools of finding success in that industry, because then you'll know exactly what to do and exactly what to say and to whom, right? To make stuff happen, to make people say, yes, okay, I will pay you for a contract to do that. So Karen, is that how you say that? So Karen says, hello. And then a little, yes. Thanks for your content. It coached me to become a better interviewee and see things more clearly and take decisions. I went back to university 2 years ago. Now I'm studying Bachelor of Business Administration and Hotel Management. Okay. Well, good. Well, I'm glad that's working out. So Karen, I'm glad you got some value out of it. Yeah. And the final thing I'd like to say about this topic, about managing money in a business, which I did talk about for about half of this stream, okay, is to take it to its logical conclusion. Okay, we talked about the first milestone being revenue positive, the second milestone being profitable. We talked about reinvesting your profits into the business, how much. Okay, so usually you're talking about a little sliver, a little fraction of your money. You're going to have to grow based on that little bit of money, okay, that you reinvest. You decide not to put into your pocket, but you reinvest in the business. So that requires a lot of efficiency. You're going to get the bang for the buck. You want to get the biggest bang for the buck for how to invest that money, okay? And that requires this idea of efficiency. What's the thing that will, for the least amount of money, will increase our profitability the most, right? Okay, and the big thing that I do actually is my quote-unquote day job as a consultant is I help companies connect their sales and marketing operations to their operations department, okay, and customer care. So for example, things like customer service, if you've ever worked in customer service, you're seeing the customers after they've bought the product. You usually don't see what has gone into discovering those customers in the first place, basically wooing them, getting them to, persuading them to buy your product or service. You usually don't see what has gone into the creation of the product or service. Okay. All the decisions that are made, in that particular area. And then you're getting them right sort of at the end of the process where, maybe there's a warranty claim, or they're dissatisfied in some way, or they have questions because something wasn't communicated to them properly, or, something like that. You're seeing the very end of the process. And because you haven't seen all these other stages, the way you go about doing customer service might not make sense for the business as a whole. And that applies to any of the departments. If you're in operations, you're making decisions about, should we buy this particular tooling to enable us to do this production process? And you're making these decisions in a vacuum. You're not seeing like, okay, how much money has gone into trying to get these customers interested in the first place? And what do the customers care about? That information is not getting to you. So you think it's great, we're going to buy this new facility to paint the product, a fancy color. What you don't realize is customers don't give a crap about that. Maybe that's already known by other people in the company, but you're spending a lot of your money on buying a fancy new paint booth or something to do all these kind of exotic paint jobs that nobody cares about, right? So you see, you're working in isolation. The same with the sales department. You're making deals with customers. You're promising all kinds of service. You're throwing in all kinds of service commitments and things to get them to buy, right? But you don't really see the cost structure of the whole thing. So all these decisions are made in isolation, and it hurts the operation. And as much as you can get sort of an awareness, a cross-training of all these departments, so they have an awareness of what else is going on, then people start making the decisions that are best for the company. And you see a lot of problems just evaporate. So that's basically what I do. But that's where this stuff goes. It comes from basically, at the end of the day, it's basically rooted in the accounting. We want to be profitable. We want to focus our investment on things that are efficient, that will improve the bottom line. Not just doing stuff because we can do them, not because of ego. So anyway, where did I leave off here? So I have to wrap this up really quickly because I'm about to start another live stream. I'll just take this one last question. Dumpling Abroad says, that's an absolutely fabulous answer. Thank you. I'm actually starting a job in August where we're going to be leasing with a landowner like farmers for green energy related things. So thanks for the idea. My pleasure, Dumpling Abroad. I'm glad that that worked for you. Okay, thank you so much for joining me on Side Hustle Ideas. This was actually a long episode. You guys are great. Check out my course, in particular my $100 MBA course. There's a link in the description box below if you want to really learn business, and then you don't have to learn everything the hard way. It's a self-study thing. Check it out. I will be back for another episode of Side Hustle Ideas next week. I hope to see you then. Take care.